Food plots are an important component in the overall habitat management puzzle. First and foremost, though, you have to know the existing habitat and how deer use your property. If you have mature forest all around you, then getting a food plot started might not be as easy as someone who has natural fields or large openings in the canopy. That isn't to say that it can't be done, but you've certainly got a good bit of work to do if your property is entirely wooded. In the world of food plotting, there are essentially two types: satellite food plots and destination food plots. Knowing which one or ones are right for you is contingent upon the size of your property and existing habitat. So in order to help break that all down, sit back, relax, and we'll try to do just that. Destination plots are where deer go to feed. It's their go-to destination. These plots are usually about an acre or more in size in order to produce substantial tonnage that will hold deer on a piece of property. What you plant in this type of a field is entirely up to you, but before deciding, take into consideration the time and money that you're investing into a larger undertaking. There's more soil to maintain, which means more time in the field plowing and planting. A nice perennial crop, though, can help to reduce your workload and give you more time in the woods. Satellite food plots are smaller. These are usually a quarter to half acre in size. These are the food plot locations that you will hunt over as deer transition into them during that magical first and last hour of daylight as they make their way either back to bedding areas in the morning or to their destination feeding areas at night. If you're fortunate enough to place a satellite plot where abundant cover exists and deer feel safe, it's possible to have them in your satellite food plots at all hours of the day. Food plots really aren't all that difficult, and their locations aren't nearly as important as some people might think, but you do gain a significant edge if you do your homework. Knowing where travel corridors are and utilizing existing natural feeding areas will definitely put you ahead of the game. You should take a few other things into consideration too, like landscape topography, soil characteristics, and existing habitat. For example, you might have visions of deer in that big empty field that's just been sitting there all these years. But what soil conditions does it have? Is it constantly wet? Don't be fooled into thinking that consistently wet soil will be a perfect spot for a food plot. Germination and survivability can be negatively impacted under these conditions. Does your potential site abut public roads or your neighbor? Many times, property lines are drawn along field edges and the forest, so it might be difficult to invest time and money turning that fallow field of yours into an all-you-can-eat buffet for deer, only to hear the neighbor's gun go off while you're the one busy glassing a beautiful whitetail working along the edge. We like to tell people to keep food plots, whether it's a destination or a satellite plot, set back at least 100 yards from any property line. Ultimately, you can only do what your property allows you to do, but the single most important thing you do control is your soil's pH. Make no mistake, if you have an excellent location picked out, but the soil characteristics are less than ideal, you'll become frustrated with your food plot. Soil acidity is a critical component. Please do not overlook that.
When considering food plots for your property, you have to establish what goals you're looking to achieve. Do you want something simply to hunt over in the fall? Or are you hoping to provide the nutrition needed to grow a healthy and productive herd? For us, we wanted all the above. In order to put inches on antlers, increase body size, as well as pull and hold deer on your property, you have to give them a reason to stay. For that to happen, perennial food plots are key, providing a destination food source with continuous high-quality forage for deer. Perennial plants are the meat and potatoes to food plotting. As summer draws to a close, the palatability of clover begins to wane, but chicory will help carry you through the driest and hottest time of the year. This is where the remaining 40% of your food plot acreage comes into play. Late season annuals are excellent for white-tailed deer and us as hunters. Planting 20% of your acreage in something like wheat is excellent to hunt over. It grows quickly and will provide high-quality food through fall. The remaining 20% can be planted in some sort of a brassica blend that will give deer plenty of green forage as the snow begins to fall. Once the leafy tops are consumed and snow is piling up, the underground turnips should begin to sweeten and deer will work to dig them up. This 60-40 approach to food plots will carry your herd throughout the year. Now let's take a walk and I'll show you how we've incorporated both types of food plots on our property.
This is our destination food plot. It's just shy of about 3 acres, but we reserve some of the best soil in the middle for our newly established apple orchard. Last summer, we planted both sides of this field with Whitetail Institute wintergreens. And let me tell you, the deer absolutely loved them. As you can see, during the late season, the deer just couldn't get enough of those leafy tops. And once winter took hold, you can see what was next up on the menu. Deer utilize this field as a destination food source. At night, they'll come into here from 2 different bedding sanctuaries, one to my north and another from the south, which puts this food plot in a great location. Right now, we're getting ready to plant this field with Whitetail Institute's Chicory Plus. We're looking at a perennial plant for this field because we want something that we can get into the ground and not really have to worry about it as much each year. It's also large enough to satisfy our perennial requirements. Now, clover is a great 3-season crop. Once it's established, clover will provide 20 to 30% protein for deer from spring through fall. It's extremely heat hardy, drought resistant, and it improves your soil naturally by incorporating nitrogen from the atmosphere right back into your soil. Now, chicory is just as impressive with an even greater protein content. The deep taproot on this plant makes it extremely heat, cold, and drought tolerant as well. Now, because chicory and clover is a perennial plant, we won't have to worry about planting this field again for the next 4 to 5 years. We've already brought the soil pH up to an optimal range and we'll only have to mow the field a few times over the summer before flowering stems begin to sprout in order to promote tender new growth. The deer are absolutely going to love this field. I cannot wait to report on the progress. All right, now why don't you guys come with me? We'll go ahead and work our way out a couple hundred yards back into the woods and I'll show you one of our satellite food plots. Come with me. Okay, so here we are along one of the main travel corridors again through the property. As you probably can't see behind me, deer coming off of the destination food plot work their way back to their bedding area along this well-worn path that deer have been using for generations. So why don't you follow me for just a little bit further and we'll come into one of our first satellite plots that I was telling you about. Now this is a satellite food plot. It's a little bit smaller than a 1/4 acre in size, but it has adequate coverage 365 degrees around it. Because of its location along an established travel corridor, deer hammered this site to the ground last year. Now, this is an excellent location to hunt over as deer will hit this location twice a day like clockwork. First in the morning as they're headed back into their bedding sanctuary, and again when the sun begins to set as those deer work their way back towards their destination food sources. Now, given the proximity to thick coverage, we have deer in these types of food plots throughout the day, which can make for some great time in the woods, not just with a gun or a bow, but a camera as well. When hunting a location like this, whether you're set up along the edge of the food plot or if you're tucked just inside the forest, always be sure that the wind is in your favor and make absolute sure that you can enter and exit that location completely undetected.
One of the problems some folks have with small satellite plots such as this is getting enough penetrating sunlight into the plot. This location is great, but presents that very challenge. Be sure to check out our episode on opening up an existing food plot for more information. Also, look to the food plot croptions episode for a detailed look at what plants you should consider. We hope this episode has provided you with a little background on the basics of food plotting.
Please, if you have any questions or comments about any of the material we've talked about here today, don't hesitate to reach out to us.